Tony Vazquez is a small business owner and former council member. He has lived in Santa Monica for 30 years.
Hi, and thank you for watching Vote 2012. And thank you, Tony, for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you think that the city government has pitted residents against businesses? And if you do, how would you strike a better balance between the two? And if you don't, how would you respond to these concerns?
You know, I think what's happening, you're talking about development now, or?
I guess so. That would be, wouldn't that be businesses? Yes.
That seems to be the key right now. At least that's what I'm hearing in talking to a lot of the neighborhood groups. And I think what's happened is that we've had so many groups, I should say, and developers, you know, kind of clashing. And the groups, I mean the neighborhood groups, that are just kind of fed up. You know, they're just fed up, especially in that downtown corridor area around north of Montana, the Wilshire corridor, and just our whole civic center. There's just so much construction going on between the college, the city, and the school district that I think neighbors are just feeling like they're just inundated. Is
there anything that you can think of that would address these concerns?
You know, I think what needs to happen is that when I was on the council in the 90s, one of the things that was frustrating to me is that when a developer would come to you with a project, they'd always bring their little model, but they would talk about it in isolation. Mm-hmm. They really wouldn't show you, you know, the impacts it has on the region. And I think that's what's making a lot of residents feel a little uncomfortable, because as they look at all these projects that are currently online, when you put them all together, it's pretty massive.
What about the airport? What do you think should be done with the airport post-2015?
You know, I'm the only one that actually lives in Sunset Park that's running, and if I'm not elected, we will not have a representative from Sunset Park. Our Mayor Bloom lives in Sunset Park, but he no longer is running because he's in a fight right now for the assembly seat. And one of my concerns about it is, you know, being a homeowner in that area, I see the constant traffic coming through our skylines there. And I think the big issue for me is not so much just the airport, I mean the single planes, but the jets. You know, we're getting so many more corporate jets flying in and out of there. And I think we need to revert back to the original footprint of the airport, which means that it would reduce the runway and hopefully eliminate a lot of the corporate jets from flying out of there.
So you would keep some part of the airport?
Well, from what I understand, I think legally, I don't know if we could close it. It'd be nice to close it, but I don't know if we can legally close the airport. But I think we could legally take away the piece that extends the runway, which actually is on city property.
Mm-hmm. Many cities have a dedicated source of funding for building affordable housing. They call it a linkage fee or a parcel tax. Explain your reason for supporting or opposing new funding for affordable housing.
Oh, we need to do whatever we can to build more affordable housing. You know, there's so many studies that have been done, and even when I was on the council, we've always been, our job and housing balance has been out of whack. You know, we're a job center with very few, especially affordable units for our workforce. You know, we have a beautiful hotels in the city, but that workforce does not live in the city.
Why do you think there are so many preferential parking zones in Santa Monica when most properties have private parking? Please, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you look at an average household, you know, people have 2 to 3 cars. And when you multiply that, especially if it's a condo unit or an apartment building, you know, you're racking up quite a bit of parking spaces, and it never comes out, it's never a wash in terms of how many spaces are available on the streets or even on site versus how many cars actually exist in the complex.
Some people think that workers should be able to use those preferential spaces during the day. Do you when the residents aren't at home?
I'd be open to that, especially if you're looking, you know, during working hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen that in other parts of the city, you know, in other cities, I should say.
Talk about Measure ES. Do you support Measure ES, the school bond?
Yes. I was actually part of that task force for the school district that actually looked at the possibility of putting this bond on the November ballot. And then after looking at the needs, specifically in Samo High, you know, my kids went through the school system, and I started working with the schools on many of these earlier bonds, hoping that someday before my kids graduated, they would actually benefit from it, especially at Samo High. You know, unfortunately, they both have graduated, and they are not, but I still think it's something that's definitely needed for the community.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.